Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Sherry Porter, Chief Operating Officer for Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices EWM Realty. It's great to be together this morning, and I'd like to welcome all of our attendees today, including those who are joining us as our guest. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. I'm going to be hosting our time together as Ron Shuffield, President and CEO, provides us with the 2025 real estate market outlook. And as you know, Ron is our go-to source for the latest in real estate and his comments on the South Florida real estate market. And so I always look forward to hearing him and gaining additional insights into our market. We'll be unpacking a lot of information, so you may want to have a notepad and a pen handy. We'll be recording this session and sending it back out along with his PowerPoint. So some of the topics Ron will be touching on is what current inventories look like, which market segments have seen growth, how interest rates are impacting the overall market, and what we can expect to see for the remainder of this year. And if you have questions, I'll be monitoring the chat, so feel free to type in any questions. Ron's going to try to keep his presentation to about 45 minutes, and we'll do Q&A throughout, but definitely at the end. So Ron, are you ready to get started?
I am ready.
All right, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. You know, we all live in a wonderful place, and I shouldn't rub this in to our friends north, but I just had to do this. This is, our headquarters for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services is in Minneapolis. Can everybody see that in degrees? Sherry, can we see that on? Okay, there we go. 10 degrees in Minneapolis. All right. Well, if that's too cold for you, you could go down to New York where it's warm, 29 degrees. And if you're still looking for warmer weather, you could go to Washington, D.C., where it's 35 degrees, or you could come all the way down to South Florida, where it is 76 degrees. You know, as trite as that sounds, I think that our weather is still one of our strongest strengths. People used to ask me, what are the strengths of Miami? Well, I've lived here for 50 years. And so when you look back to those first years that I was here back in the, 70s and 80s, we had some pretty rough times. And so I would tell people then, that our strengths were our airport, our weather, and our diversity. And people would look at me and say, "Oh, but gosh, we're having all kinds of challenges with immigration, we had riots during some of that period. That was a rough period for us. But today, I look at the diversity of our community as being one of our strongest strengths. We speak 24 languages just in EWM. And then when you get out into our community and you just see, the rich population that we have of just so many cultures of foods and religions and cultures and art and all the different things that have come here in the last 5 decades, it's an amazing place to live. And now the rest of the world has noticed that this is where they want to be as well. And of course, we're going to see some of that here in these slides in a minute with the new inventory that's coming and the new buyers that are coming. And we'll kind of pinpoint where a lot of these people are coming from. So I'm going to shift us over here to my screen, and then we're going to all see that. Hopefully you can see, everybody can see that now. Sherry, can everybody see that on their screen?
Yes, we can see it,
Okay.
Ron.
All right. I love this picture. This is obviously downtown Miami, but you look at what's been built here in the time that I've lived here, none of these tall buildings were there. My first office was on Brickell Avenue in the mid 70s or the late 70s, and our building was 11 stories. We were the tallest building on Brickell at that time, and now we're building a 100-story Waldorf Astoria. There are a lot of 85-story buildings down there, and of course, the arena. There in the very foreground is the Contemporary Art Museum, the Perez Art Museum. All these things have been done just in the last 50 years. And then when you look at this next picture, you have Fort Lauderdale. And so you think, my gosh, that was like a little sleepy town 50 years ago. And look at their downtown now. And of course, the water that you see in the foreground here and what we see all up and down from Miami to Palm Beach to Broward County, the water is what makes us super extra special. So, I always love to look at these pictures because this is what everybody dreams about having. And of course, we have a lot of our friends now that are beginning to move here and to live in many of these buildings. Okay, so mortgage interest rates. You've seen this graph before. We're going to continue to update this because this is healthy for the buyers in particular to see that while we did enjoy, a decade or more of low interest rates into the 3 and 4% range, most of our history have lived in this 6 to 7% interest range. Now, as you look on the left side over here, you see in 2007 or 1975, January of 1975, our interest rate at that point was 9.6%. This is this bar right here. So all these blue bars are below 10%. Most of this right in here was in the 9 to 10% range. And this was from 1975 to 1980. And then we got into these 10% ranges. People forget that we never had an interest rate below 10% for over a decade. So all of this high interest rate here, we still made sales. People still bought homes. It was a little bit tougher, but we lived through a whole decade of interest rates at this high, that were this high. And then in 1990, we got back into the under 10% range. And then we got into the 7, 8% range over here. And then over here in 2010, interest rates started falling below 5%, and 5%, 4%, 3%, even 2.7%. And then we started raising rates in the spring of 22. So here we were in January of 22. January of 22, the interest rate was about 3.5%. And then by a year later, we were at 6.5%. So we increased the interest rate 3% between the spring of 22 and the spring of 23. And now we're kind of in this area, which will probably stay for some time. It sounds like all of our economists are telling us that we'll hopefully comfortably stay in this range. But, the idea of getting back to a 5% rate, certainly this year or even in the next couple of years, is probably not going to happen. So this is an encouragement for our sellers, for our buyers to go ahead and purchase what may seem like a higher rate today, but they can always refinance this. But home prices may never go back down. So, even if once you get into a property, you can always change the rate if the rates drop. But you can't always find another house in your street that's going to sell for what you paid for it. So this is a graph that we should work with our buyers and explain how this works and how fortunate we are to be where these rates are today. Okay, this graph, as you know, is a favorite of mine too, because it shows how much buying power has been lost over these last few years. I don't normally show this graph to buyers as much as I do to sellers, but I want the sellers to understand that their buyer does not have as much money to spend today as they had 3 years ago. As you look at this rate at 3%, this was in January of 2022, the rate was 3.2%. So in January, just 3 years ago, we were still dealing with rates at 3.2%. The mortgage rate, the mortgage payment on $1 million at 3% is $4,216 a month. If that's all you can afford to pay, then even when the rates go up, and like today, if you borrow $1 million today, the principal interest payment on that is $6,822, 62% higher than it was back in 2022. So 3 years ago, the payment was $4,216. Today, that same payment is $6,822. So if you can still only make a payment of $4,200, that means that you have to borrow less money, or you can only borrow less money. So the erosion of our borrowing power is fallen by 38%. So instead of being able to borrow $1 million like you could 3 years ago, today you can borrow $618,000. Now, people say to me all the time, "Oh, but so many of our buyers are cash." Well, that's true, but we're all affected by headlines and our business loans and other things that are impacted by increasing rates. So this is a graph where I like to show this also to sellers to show that the buyers don't have the buying power that they had back then. Again, we're going to answer questions as we kind of go here. So Sherry's going to be kind of our keeper of the questions. So if you have questions, you can jot those into the chat, and I'll stop in the middle and we can answer questions or get your perspective on what I'm talking about as well. Okay, this next slide, the tax factor. There are a lot of reasons that people move to Florida besides the weather, and probably the second, if not the first, is the fact that we have no state income tax. These 8 states in green do not have a state income tax. So there are only 8 in the country. And then as you look around the country, these that are in black are the highest. California, 13.3%. These are the highest rates. these rates obviously start a little bit lower, just like our federal taxes do. But as they increase, they can get, in California's case, to 13.3%, Oregon 9.9%, even Minnesota 9.85%. Washington, D.C., 10.75%. Some of these areas that are states and Washington, D.C. that were too small to show up on a graph up in here, we put over on the side. So this is a reason that many of your buyers are coming here, and this will continue to be a huge draw for us. Florida is probably the most business-friendly, tax-friendly state in the country now. And I know that is why we continue to have so much interest coming from all over the world. And now this is a graph we've never really, we've looked at this before, but not in the format. The second graph, I'm going to show you the last 4 years. This format we have seen before. This is year over year. So from last year to this year, this is how much each one of these states have grown. The interesting thing about this graph, this quarter, last quarter, we had 16 states in the United States that lost population from the year before. Now we only have 2, and really they haven't lost hardly anything. 1 person a day in West Virginia, 1 person a day in Vermont. But all the other states, even New York, is now growing again by 356 people a day. But we're going to see in a minute how much that they've lost, and California and some of these other states have lost in the last 4 years since COVID. Texas is growing at the rate of 1,542 people a day. Florida is growing at the rate of 1,280 people a day. I know sometimes we feel like all those people are on I-95 at the same time, but I think that we will continue to see this kind of growth. So this is a great graph, and our buyers like to see this too, because it makes buyers moving from out of the area, it makes them feel confident that they're making a good decision too, because they just see so many other people making that same decision. All of these states that have the dotted lines around them are our tax-free states. And now this graph is the one we've never seen before. This is taking a 4-year look at the last 4 years and how the population has changed since 2020. So you look at California has lost 90,000 people in the state of California. New York has lost the most, 237,000 people. And as you look at these graphs, you're kind of blown away when you see that Texas has grown by 2 million people. Florida has grown by almost 1.8 million people. And of course, Dade County, Miami-Dade County, Broward County, Palm Beach County have had a significant amount of this growth. This is a new graph that we've never seen before too. The Driver's License Bureau is now publishing numbers that show how many people are moving their driver's license from another state to Florida. And in particular, what we've identified here is this graph on the left is Miami-Dade, the one in the middle is Broward, the one on the right is Palm Beach. So as you see, in 2024, 4,000 people from New York moved their license to Florida. In California, last year it was 2,500. So a little over 200 people a day are moving from California. Texas on down the line. And you see New York is at the top of all 3 of our counties. So a lot of New Yorkers are coming our way, as well as these other states. But then you zero in on the real numbers here. Out of state, 21,000 people have moved their driver's license last year from another state to Florida, but even more people from another country, 36,500 have moved from another country. And as you look at these 3 counties, Broward County is about the same number of people moving from another state as another country, total of 37,681 people that have moved their driver's license from another area. But then in Palm Beach, they don't have the international business that we've had from outside the country. They have some, 8,700 people, but 23,000. They had the most of people moving from another state in the U.S. But just these 3 counties have had 127,000 people move their driver's license from another state. The whole state of Florida, 524,000. So 500,000 people have moved. Now, as you go back to those net numbers we were looking at a minute ago, we obviously have some people that leave, but we have a net gain of about 400,000 people in the state of Florida. We did have last year. Okay, so that's a lot of data. More exchange rates. That the dollar has stayed very strong against every other currency in the world over this last probably decade now. And we continue to see that. But as you look at the change just in the last 12 months, for Brazilians, it's 27% more expensive to exchange their currency. Same thing with Argentina, Russia's 20%, Mexico 20%. So all of these countries where we deal, where people are moving here from these countries, the ones that have the steepest increase in their cost of buying or exchanging their currency for our currency, many of those people are more motivated every day to move large sums of money out of their country into our currency. And the easiest way that they have found, and the enjoyment that they get out of having a home here, is what is driving a lot of this as well. Okay, unlock your profit potential. People ask me, why do you label that unlock your profit potential? Well, because we have so many investors in our marketplace. We have people that, I know people in Brickell Avenue that own 100 units, and that's just their investment pool. They rent out 100 units. If you look at the homestead exemptions across many of our condo buildings, you'll see that the average across the county is only about 36 or 37% of the people who own a unit live in that unit. So that means you have 2/3 of the owners of a typical building especially the downtown Brickell area, 2/3 of the owners are investors or landlords. So when I say unlock your profit potential, a lot of people that own those units don't realize how much gain they have seen in their unit over just the last few years. And this graph, again, is a great graph to spend extra time with your buyers on, because it shows the strength of owning real estate. I love this graph because it overlays the months of supply, all these bars down here, with the median price. So if you go back a little box over to the left, I ran out of space. I didn't want to make this graph so long. So in 2007, when we were just entering the recession, the Great Recession, the median price of a single family home in Miami was $373,000. By January of 11, so this was almost 4 years later, that $373,000 home median price had dropped to $150,000. We kind of forget that. It took us 13 years to build back up to where we were in 2007. So as you look from 150,000 up to 380,000, so we got back to where we were back in 07. And then we started our march up. And the reason these prices started going up is because the months of supply dropped so significantly here. We were now down at, this is COVID years here. We were down at, 2021, going into 22. This is when we had no supply. You remember the lines we had at open houses. And so these low months of supply pushed up the prices. And this is what, and conversely, what happens is when the supply gets too high, like over in back in these years in 08, 9, 10, then the prices start dropping. And that's what happened from 2007 to 2011. We saw this significant drop because we got up to, in this case, 2 years of supply, which is way above the 6 to 9 months that we all know is the optimum months. Now, this black line here is a 6-month marker. So as you see in all this period in here, prices were, or their inventory was lower, so prices were increasing. And then as the prices started coming up and sales started lagging a little bit, months of supply came up and this line leveled out. And then when COVID came, we ran out of inventory, prices started going up and up and up and up. And now we're seeing this inventory growing again, and you're starting to see this median price, which is now at in December, it was $680,000, which, from $150,000 just 13 years prior is a remarkable boost in the median price of any market, but we've seen it firsthand here. So I guess you see how this works now. I won't spend as much time on the next one, but this one now are our condominiums. So condominiums in 2007 were $265,000 as a median price. Condo median price fell in January of 11 to $92,000. Same thing happened. We had almost 3 years of supply here in 2008 after the recession. And the only reason all this started dropping is because we started dropping prices. We dropped prices from 265 as a median in 07, 4 years later to 92,000 in 2011. And then we started our march up because we dropped prices so much, people started buying again. So now the inventory started dropping again, months of supply started dropping again. And so now inventory started growing as we approached COVID here. And as you see, this median price line started kind of leveling off about 2017 all the way up to 2019. So for a couple of years, we were in this 245 kind of a range. And then all of a sudden, COVID came, and then we dropped down to 2 and 3 months of supply, which was unprecedented for most of us in our working careers, at least. And prices started going higher and higher and higher. And then we hit this period when the mortgage rates then started going up. That's this shaded area when the rates went from 3% to 6%, 6.5%. And then you see we got a lot of uncertainty here. You know, prices were bouncing around. And as you look in September of 24, the median price of a condo was 420,000. By March of 24, it was 445,000. Then it fell in September to 420,000. Now we're back up to 435,000. But you're going to see in a few minutes, even from December to January, we're now looking at a $417,000 median price for condos. This is where, you know, probably our whole conversation this morning could center around this right here, because we have condos now represent half of our inventory, and we'll continue to do that because we have built so many condos over the last 50 years. We needed to do that. It's one of the most affordable places that people can buy today. Single family homes obviously have gotten very expensive, and we'll look at that here in a second too. But if you have any questions, again, ask them now.
Actually, Ron, before
Yes.
you move on,
Sure.
somebody was inquiring what your thoughts are on a potential housing bubble.
Well, we're going to kind of answer that as we look through this. In single family homes, I don't see that because we still have a good balance of inventory. We are going to see price increases slow, I think. I mean, we've been living with double-digit increases per year for the last few years. And as you see here, this is a good time to talk about this. In this graph, this is a 15-year look back. So from January of 24 to December of 24, at the end of December last year, we had 4,973 units on the market. A year before, we had 3,991. It's a 24.6% increase. But the number of sales is it is the same. You know, last year we averaged 934, this year 936. So very slight gain here. So when you have inventory increasing this much and our sales are staying flat, prices are definitely going to soften. We're already seeing that. Our sellers, even in our most expensive homes, are getting much more agreeable to listing to some other pricing schemes because, you know, trying to hang on to, well, I can keep increasing what my neighbor paid, you know, those days have passed. But for single family homes, I don't see this, you know, usually when you talk about a bubble, you're thinking about things getting ready to crash. And I don't see that in single family homes. But in some of our condo buildings, especially buildings that have not been managed very well, and they have a lot of assessments coming, and we'll talk about that a little bit more too. But that will have some impact on condo prices. Sherry, did I answer that okay there? You got anything to add to the question?
That's great. Thank you.
All right, this graph is a 15-year look at condos. Now, again, scrolling back to single family, 24.6% increase in inventory, significant increase, but we needed more inventory. The industry needed more inventory. And the main reason we needed it, I think, is because we need to tame these steep increases in prices year after year. But we only sold 0.2% more properties. But then condos, different story. Almost 50% increase in inventory in condos in the last year. 11% fewer sales. You don't want these graphs going in opposite directions. I mean, this business is not very complicated. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. And when you see this scenario that we're looking at, you know that months of supply are going to grow and that prices are going to soften. And this is the first indicator that that's getting ready to happen because inventory steep increases past year. When you look back at the months of supply, which we'll see here toward the end of these slides, well, we'll see it throughout the slides. Months of supply uh, will continue to increase. And in most cases, we've seen the months of supply double, if not more, in the last 12 months. And again, this is not something that I'm afraid of. It's not something that, that we didn't think would happen eventually. I mean, everybody hopes that the stock market keeps increasing, home prices keep increasing, but it's not healthy for either one to just continue on a double-digit rate. I mean, if we can increase prices at 5% a year over the lifetime of someone owning a home, that's a great investment. The value of living in a home has a whole lot more to do with your family and peace of mind and all the things that our homes mean to each one of us. So anyway, these are two important graphs to look at, though, when we're talking to our sellers in particular, because if we have a seller today selling a condo, every condo building's different, every neighborhood's different, but this is the overall macro look. And when you start looking at the micro looks, you'll see that many of our buildings probably need to have some price adjustments in what we're asking right now. I love this picture too. I just stick it in here, not to make us realize that we have, another 2 years of sitting through traffic around all this construction. But this is going to be a beautiful new piece of art for our community. There's a Performing Arts Center, Adrian Arts Center over here on the right. And of course, this bridge is going right beside it there. All right, the overall market, another different shot of the downtown shoreline in Miami. Okay, these are the graphs, which we can really get buried into this. It's already 10:30, but I'm going to try to speed through these. We probably won't go to each one of these in detail, but you're going to have access to this pretty much as soon as we hang up here today. But as you look, single family homes, 25% increase at the end of December over last year. So this is the number of homes, and we just talked about that a minute ago. Last year, there were 3,991 on the market, and today there are 4,973, and this number is going to increase. And the number of sales were flat. We basically sold the very same, 2,450 sales for the quarter, the fourth quarter of last year versus 2,469. So the supply of inventory, we've gone from 4.9 months to 6.2 months. Now remember, what we're looking for as an optimum is 6 to 9 months of inventory. So we're happy to see a 27% increase in the supply from 4.9 months to 6.2 months. It'll help to tame these huge increases we've been getting in median price. But median price has still been going up. In the last 12 months, median price of a single family home is moved from 620,000 to 675,000. You heard me say a minute ago that the last month was $680,000. So, healthy increase, but we probably won't continue to see that, as we move forward into 2025. Broward County, more inventory, 34% increase. Sales were up 3%, which is good. Supply from 3.8 months to 5.2 months, which is still below where we would like for them to be. Median price also up 7%. So healthy in both of these cases. Palm Beach County, 24% increase in inventory. The sales are starting to drop and the months of supply are starting to go up, but still well below that 6 to 9 months. Median price, though, first time we've seen that the market is dropped to only 1% increase, 650,000 to 658,000. But we need to watch all of these because we will see more inventory coming. I think that sales are going to increase, which is going to be great for realtors, and it's going to be great for all of us because the buyers are going to have more to choose from. But the months of supply are going to continue to grow because the inventory is growing faster than we're selling. And the median price hopefully will stay into the low percentages, not double digits.
Ron,
Okay. Yes.
when you were talking about a look back with the condos, a question came up about the condo inventory being skewed going back 20 years because there are many more condos today than there were 20 years ago.
Yes, you're saying that they're skewed by the percentage increases, or?
Well, just that there's so many more condos today than we
Yes.
had 20 years ago.
Yes. Well, I think that, we're obviously going to have a more need for more condos. We have a lot of, our population, and we saw those numbers a minute ago. We're growing by, thousands of people every day, 1,280 people a day across the state. But we're, the timing of that question is very good too, because now we're on the condo page. And as you see here, Miami-Dade County, 48%. So this is a 48% increase from 8,000 up to 12,000. But yes, there have been periods where we had more than 12,000 before the recession. This number was well even higher than that. But the number one metric that we're looking at, when we say it can be skewed, I guess that question says, is that cause, is that a cause for concern that we're making decisions on skewed numbers? The decisions we're making are all based on months of supply, because this takes out any skewing, because now this is strictly the number you have today, the number of sales we're making today. And we know proven 6 to 9 months is the proper balance. Once we get above 13 months, we start to see some erosion in value. And I think that this is where I have the concern. Now, every condo building is different, just like every neighborhood is different. Every single family home is different. But condominiums, I guess, fortunately, unfortunately, what's happening to one is probably happening to the other 300 people in that building. So this is why it's been so important for the buildings that have maintained their buildings properly, because for the buildings that have been maintained properly, that's where buyers will gravitate today. You're not going to have the threat of the huge assessments because repairs have been delayed for 10 or 20 years. But as again, you look at this number for Dade County, we've had a 48% increase in inventory and an 11% decrease in sales. So I made the comment earlier, you don't want these numbers moving in opposite directions, because if sales are down and inventory is rising, then months of supply are going to rise. And of course, you see here, that's what's happened, 7.6 months and 13.1 months. And I'll give you a little preview. In January, all these numbers are December. There's no perfect time to do these reports because it changes daily. But I'll give you a little sneak peek at the very end of this to show that these months of supply for condos in Dade County are now up to 18 months. And so it happens very quickly when the inventory starts growing as quickly as it does. And of course, a lot of reasons I think that the inventory is going to show up later now than it did before is because we had so many uncertainties with the election that we just went through. And now that I'm not sure we'll ever know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow, but we certainly, have a better understanding today than we did before, this current administration was put into office just this month, and they'll be there for 4 years. So, there'll be a lot of conversation back and forth, and, a lot of other countries and tariffs, and a lot of other things that can impact our business. But I think that the thing that we need to watch is the months of supply. And again, of all the things that we've watched through the years, that's the one that's the most telling. And those two graphs we talked about earlier, the single family and condo, showing what happens when the inventory grows and the months of supply grow, prices start to soften. And we can afford to soften a little bit. I mean, we can really afford to soften a lot, because in the last 4 years, most of our properties have increased 70 to 100% in that 4-year period. Okay, so
Ron, before you,
yeah,
we
sure.
did have another question about the condo.
Mhm.
Is there an impact on condo pricing due to increased number of rental buildings?
Yes, there definitely is, because when you have a condominium building that has only 10 or 20% of the owners living there, that means that the other 80 to 90% are investors. The value of that condo, the way it's being owned and the way it's being managed, the value of that condo has nothing to do with the joy of you living in your unit. It has everything to do with the return on investment. So as taxes increase, as homeowners fees increase, in some cases now with assessments, all of that figures into the ROI, to the return on investment. And so when you have a large preponderance of these units being held in the hands of investors, they're more on par with a traditional apartment building. So if someone is renting an apartment for $5,000 a month in a building owned by a large company that owns the whole building versus one condo owner, it's not that much different to the tenant. They say, well, okay, these are both beautiful buildings, and so where's the best price? And typically what happens in those cases, if the large building owner has to reduce prices, or they, and I tell everybody, rather than reduce prices, give a tenant, a free month's rent or a couple of free months rent, because once you start reducing prices, then that does affect the long-term value of the building. So I guess, I don't know if that answered the question exactly.
Well, and kind of another part of that, and I'm not sure it's anything we have a way of tracking. Do you have any numbers on increased rental buildings?
Yes, we have some
I-
rental information in here. The only rental information that's really accurate is what we can get from our fellow realtors who are renting. And pretty much all of the rental information that you're going to see from us is what goes through the MLS. And of course, traditional apartment buildings don't generally put their properties in the MLS, but the one at a time condos that we manage or we list and sell and list and rent for individual owners, that's where our data comes from. So yeah, we'll see that. Okay, Broward County, 65% increase in inventory. Sales are down 17%. Supply, this is where I start to get a little anxious. 5.7 months of supply in Broward County a year ago, and now we're at 11.8 months. I mean, that's all happened in 12 months. And it's not something that we didn't expect. It's just probably taking a little bit longer than we thought it would take. But when the interest rates started increasing, which was a good thing, we did not need any more cheap money just rushing up prices. And that's why we ended up with these double-digit increases in value, because we lowered the prices, lowered the interest rates to 3% range, and it just seemed like free money. And people that would have never thought about buying something said, well, gee, I can borrow this money so cheaply, then let's just buy another condo unit. And it's fine, but we're going to give back some of that value in condos. We're already seeing it, and I think even in single-family homes to some degree, but it's not going to be disastrous. And we forget that we lost value. We lost 60% of the value during the recession. So between 07 and 11, your house, my house, your condo, their condo, I mean, everybody was losing more than half of the value. And I look back at those numbers and I'm thinking, how did we get through that? But we did. And, I don't think that's going to happen again, not based on where we are today. But, and I know the reason that the Fed dropped the rates so low is because we needed to do something about COVID. So many people were out of work, and, we had moratoriums for landlords to raise rents. I mean, there were a lot of things that had to happen then, which, we were fortunate that we had, smart people that figured that out. The only thing I would have kind of in critique of our leaders that did that, I think we should have raised the rates back up from 3% to something higher, 4%, 5%. We should have done it a year sooner than we did, but this is where we are. Okay, Palm Beach County, similar, 5.4 months of supply, 10.3 months today. So 92% increase in the months of supply. And their median price, again, is flat, 310,000, 310,000. And I think we're going to continue to see all of these median prices, struggle in condos. They're going to struggle to keep the prices that we have today. All right, under $1 million market, I'll kind of speed through this. Again, you're going to have all of this. You see how this works. If you need to read this quickly, I would just look at the supply numbers in each one of these. So, the under $1 million market, this is a market that's disappearing in Dade County now. If you go into the MLS this morning, about half of our inventory is now in the under $1 million market. We got about 5,000 units right now in inventory for single family, and 2,888 of them are under $1 million. So I never thought that I would be saying that, but if someone calls us today and say, okay, I want to see a sampling of your inventory, what's the price range? Well, I can just quickly say to them, well, half of what we're going to show you is going to be over $1 million and half is going to be under $1 million. And people don't really believe that, because they still think that the over $1 million market is 10% of the market, but it's now half of the market. Okay, and total sales, though, are down here, and people say, well, gosh, this is like the less expensive properties. Why would those sales be down? Well, these people typically, lower price buyers are going to need a mortgage. And so this probably reflects a lot of that as well. And median price, though, is still up. Median price is still up. Median price over here, though, we've seen that in Palm Beach for these last 2 or 3 screens. Their median price is kind of leveled off. and then every one of these cycles, when you look back at the recession back in '07, there were still people paying a high price in '07 for about a year, and you see that especially in condo buildings where, you go back to that period and you see, my goodness, why did some of these people pay, $100,000 more for a unit when the same month other people were paying $100,000 less? And I think it's just because they didn't have good advice. And as these markets change, that's what creates this. And I think that we, as people that our buyers and sellers both depend on, my message today to sellers is be realistic. You still have a lot of value in your properties, whether it's a condo, and especially if you've owned it for more than 3 or 4 years. And of course, if you've owned it for 20 or 30 years, then you've got a lot of gain already built up. But don't be greedy. I think now's the time to make your decision, especially if you're an investor. And in condominiums, most condominium owners are investors. And look what's happening here. This is condominiums in the under $1 million market. Inventory's up 56%. Sales are down 15%. Broward up 69%. Sales are down 17%. Palm Beach County, all three of these graphs look almost the same. And all these months of supply are going up, 6 months to almost 12 months in Dade County, 5 months to almost 12 months in Broward County, in Palm Beach County, 5 to 10 months. So all of these are getting into areas where we know that values are not going to stay where they were. Median price, flat, median price, flat, median price, flat. This is not a complicated business. I've been doing this a long time, and these metrics just never change. And this is the basis of economics. So, it's all about supply and demand. I can remember Dr. George Silva was our teacher in college, or a professor in college. And he would always say, if the inventory is increasing and the demand is decreasing, you're going to have falling prices, and vice versa. If you have an increasing demand, which we certainly had during COVID years, and a low supply or a decreasing supply, then prices are going to go up. And in our case, we know that once we get past that, 9, 12 months of, once we start getting into those higher months of inventory, prices, start dropping. And when we get into those low months, like we saw, under 6 months of supply, we start getting into double-digit appreciation. Okay, over $1 million. This is where more of our buyers are. That probably $1 million to $2 million is kind of the sweet spot for buyers today. But even in these, we're still seeing 10 months of supply in Dade County, 10 months in Broward County, 10 months in Palm Beach County. And then condos, 20 months of supply in the over $1 million market, 20 months of supply in the over $1 million market, 19 months of supply in Broward County in the over $1 million market, 18 months in Palm Beach. Now, I should say 6 to 9 months is the optimum number of months of supply for all price ranges. Once we get above $1 million, maybe above $2 million is a more fair, barometer. Once we start getting into the higher price ranges, we can handle up to, 12 to 18 months of supply. So, but when we're at 20 and 19 months, this is going to bypass, anything that we believe is a limit. So, again, these graphs are so important, and it's pretty simple just to look at these, and it opens up a lot of great discussions with buyers and sellers. Okay, here we are, market data by price segment. So that was the overall market, and now, the under $500,000 market, gets into a little bit more granular here, and 500 to $1 million, $1 million to $2 million. I won't go through each one of these. You can do this later, but this breaks it down on a much more definite price range. 10 million, obviously, this is a market that we are involved in significantly. Right now, there are 206 properties on the market, single-family homes in Dade County on the market, over $10 million, 13% fewer than we had a year ago. But sales are doubled, 13 sales to 26 sales. So, this is a quarter sales. So if we had 26 sales in 3 months, that was October, November, December. So in those 3 months, we basically sold about 8 or 9 sales a month over $10 million. So when you factor that into down here, a year ago we had 54 months of supply, but because we doubled the sales, the months of supply have now dropped to 24 months, still on the high side. And, median prices dropped for that price range. Now again, you're talking about so few number of sales. When you're talking about 8 or 9 sales a month, you have to be careful with these percentages. But we definitely are seeing, price reductions in this price range. In Broward County, similar. You've got, except this is 91 months of supply. Only 3 sales in the last 3 months. So this means in Broward County, there's only 1 home a month selling for over $10 million. So if someone's coming to you today and saying, okay, I want to be the 92nd property on the market over $10 million, we need to have, serious discussion about what the value is, because with this kind of inventory, 91 months of supply, it's not probably something that, is an easy question to answer. But I mean, we just have to be careful with that much inventory, that number of months of supply, and only 1 sale a month. Palm Beach County, they're, better looking than Broward County in this over $10 million market. All right, $10 million and higher for condos. There are 174 condos in the market right now over $10 million. Sold 7 last quarter. So, that's, 2 to 3 a month, and 74 months of supply. So, Broward County doesn't really have any of that market, and Palm Beach County would be similar to Miami. All right. In the rental market we talked about before, and here at the end of December, we had 1,778 properties for rent in the MLS. And we were renting 1,437 in that quarter, which was 2% more than the quarter before. Months of supply works just like single family. I mean, works just like for sale. Only 4 months of supply. Median price of an apartment has been dropping some, not drastically, but back to someone's question earlier, it's a good question. Yes, all those large buildings add to the inventory. So when you see these brand new buildings, one after another, they're popping up with big banners on the side, renting now, those buildings are factored into what we're seeing in these numbers, because pretty much all of these rental numbers is someone's individual condo unit because of the way our MLS works. And we didn't have this for Palm Beach, so you just see Dade and Broward. All right, that's that. And then those were single family homes for rent, and then these are condos for rent. And as you see here, we actually rented fewer, 6%, but that's not, that's all these graphs are still 3 to 4 months of supply. And I think that that's probably pretty accurate from everything that I'm aware of that we're working with. All right, market data by city. So thank you to our team. I mean, Lisa, who works with me, spent a lot of time digging all these numbers out, and kind of helping me to just pull all the information together. And then our marketing team, Lillian and Vanessa and others there have helped tremendously in making all this look pretty and easy to navigate. But we have 100 pages of information here, so you might want to just pull out the 2 or 3 or 4 pages that are meaningful to your buyer or seller, so you don't just drown them in all of our paper. So Aventura numbers. Again, I'm not going to go through all these individually. And here we've kind of chosen price ranges rather than the overall, because Aventura prices are very high. Only 4% of the sales in Aventura are single family homes. 96% of the sales in Aventura are condos. But these numbers are very small, only 8 units on the market. But again, in a place like Aventura, you don't have a lot of that. And then their condos, this is where you have a lot more of it. There was, let's say, 1,100 or 1,300 condos on the market right now. Sales are up. Supply though is up too, 19 months of supply. Okay, about Harbor, all these, let's get to something that's more balanced, probably not so many condos. Brickell, obviously a lot of condos in Brickell. And in fact, these are, there are very few single family homes, only 8 single family homes in the Brickell area on the market, 944 condos, but sales in Brickell are down 22% from this fourth quarter to the same fourth quarter last year. And months of supply are 15 months. So if I'm in Brickell and I have a condo, I want to be careful because with my pricing, many of these units are, of course, rented units. So it's back to what I said earlier. The decision on buying one of these units has more to do with a business decision of the income it's producing, the expenses, and what the return on investment looks like versus, gee, that's a beautiful place to live and I'll pay whatever it costs. And we still have a lot of that, but it's certainly less than half of the people living in those buildings that own, half of the people owning those buildings live in those buildings. And in many cases, it's even, 25 to 30% of the actual people living there are the owners. So these graphs though are so helpful in making decisions about how to price. And of course, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Coconut Grove inventory is down. The Grove is obviously a very desirable place. A lot of people are looking for single family homes there, tearing down single family homes, building. There's more construction going on than I ever remember the whole time I've lived here in pretty much every market, whether it's Pinecrest or Coral Gables or Coconut Grove. And in the beach, everywhere you look, there are homes being torn down and rebuilt into bigger, newer homes. Okay, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because it's just, there's good data in all of this. The under $2 million single family market in Coral Gables, sales are up, inventory is up. Months of supply, though, we're still at 3.9 months of supply. But then you flip over here to condos and we're at 8.5 months of supply. And then when you get over $2 million in condos, our supply is 3.5 years. So we have to be careful with that. 33% fewer sales in the over $2 million condo in Coral Gables. But in the under $2 million condo, our inventory's up and sales are still down there as well. So, obviously Coral Gables has great product in both single family and condo, but even condos, even single family here, though, over $2 million have increased by 12% this past year, and sales are what they are, and the months of supply, I need to go back and check that. That doesn't look right to me, but yeah, I guess it's right now. 9 months of supply. No, that is right. That's right. Okay. Cutler Bay, we have a lot of great new markets that have seen significant increase in values. All of these these markets have done well price wise since the recession, and especially since COVID. Okay, let me get over here to, I'm going to get out of these individual cities, individual markets, and Key Biscayne is like a place unto its own. Oh my goodness, single family homes. There's nothing there under $2 million. I mean, they start at $4 million. City of Miami, this of course is a big area too. Miami Beach, Miami Lakes. I want to get over here to the current where we are right now today. Pinecrest is another market that's, I never dreamed just a few years ago that we would see an acre lot in Pinecrest 40 years ago. Al Harper and I bought EWM 40 years ago last year. And so it's easy for me to remember what we were selling things for that particular year. An acre lot in Pinecrest 40 years ago was $125,000. I mean, the best acre lots in Pinecrest were $125,000. Today, the best acre lots in Pinecrest, same lots that we were selling for $125,000 40 years ago, the last ones we've sold are $3,750,000 for a vacant lot. And of course, we're building homes at $10 and $12 million there now. So that's just a fact of what's happened. But it's all about supply and demand. And you have a limited supply and you have a growing demand. And I could say what I just said about Pinecrest about a lot of our markets.
Ron, somebody's
Yes.
asking, do these numbers include new construction costs not in the MLS?
That's a great question. Very limited, as you know, and single family, pretty much all of it's in there. All the new construction that's being sold, and condos not, because a lot of these condos, of course, they'll put a representative model into the MLS, but not all 300 units. But in single family, pretty much all new single family, unless it's just sold before construction starts, is in there. All right, Surfside, Wellington, more Weston. We've got a lot of, a lot of areas here. Okay, this is the graph that we've titled "Growing Inventory in 2025," and it's pretty simple to see that we've had a 4.9% increase in single-family homes in the inventory. So over the last, month. But as you look at the last year, so we increased the inventory just last month by 5%. So again, none of these other numbers that we were looking at were the January numbers. And I hesitate to even show this because this is still kind of preliminary. I mean, today's only the 5th of February. So there's still realtors that are not posting new inventory, but posting sales. And so some of these sales will grow, but not a lot. These numbers were as of yesterday, but we had 5,218 units on the market at the end of January. So that number is never going to change because that was inventory. It had to be listed at the end of the month. And a month ago, it was 4,973. So we had a 5% increase in inventory just in 1 month, which is not abnormal for January because we always list more in January, but not usually this much. In January 25, again, 5,218 is what it was yesterday, but or at the end of January. But as a year ago, it was over 1,000 units more in inventory. So this is the number that we should be focused on. So 28% increase in inventory. The new listings were 12% more than we listed in January of last year. But this is the one that kind of concerns me because we've had a 13% decrease in the number of sales. So again, you don't want these graphs going in opposite directions. You don't want the inventory increasing 28% and the sales decreasing 13%. This number will not be 13% by another week here because we'll have more sales reported in the MLS. So that's why, again, why we have to be careful with this graph here. But I wanted you to get a glimpse of how much inventory is continuing to increase more than we have seen year to year in these past couple of years. So this is something our seller needs to get ahead of. And so when I'm talking to a seller, of course, we can look at all this. I mean, all this is in trend graphics, so you can pull every one of these graphs you can do yourself. And if you haven't figured out how to use that yet, make that your goal this month to, sit with. I mean, all of our managers are great at this. Diane's here with me and helping me with this morning, and and all of our managers, can help you learn how to do these trend graphics. And this gives you so much good information, just data to talk with sellers in particular about when the market's changing like this. I mean, sellers need to get in front of this before they find out that, okay, well, the rest of my street's now listed and I waited too long. Okay, here we are at months of supply for single family homes. You remember, I told you earlier there that we were in this 5 and 6 months supply for October, November, December. Well, now you add January into the mix, and now median price has actually dropped a little bit. So you see this steady growth in median price, 610, 630, 649, 650, 655, and then kind of midsummer, we started seeing a little bit of waffle here, 670,000 median price, 640,000 median price. We picked it back up, 660, 660, 675, but now 655. So all of this kind of like up and down here is probably going to continue. So, I thought we were going to hit 700,000 at the end of the year, but I'm not sure we're going to do that now because, the prices are going to, have to adjust to some degree as we continue to build inventory. And so, anyway, you can see the median price is still up from a year ago from 620 to 675. And the months of supply are still very favorable at 7.1 months. And now this one are condos. So again, we saw, remember back here, 28% increase in inventory, 13% decrease in sales. And now for condos, we've seen a 44% increase in inventory and sales are down 17%. So, condos, I think the takeaway from this morning is going to be, we need to really be analyzing all of our condo sales, because unfortunately condos are going to take a lot of the hit and negative headlines for the rest of the year. And we needed to do something. I mean, we couldn't allow buildings just to continue limping along, not keeping proper reserves and not maintaining buildings. I mean, we saw what happened to Surfside and the tragedy there. I mean, there's tragedies everywhere, but the biggest tragedy was that could have been prevented had the people who had the information just done something about it. But because they didn't want to pay to fix it, they took the gamble of just letting it go. And now buildings are not going to do that in the future. And so there's going to be significant costs to do that in some buildings, which is going to lower the value of those buildings, especially for the units that are rented. Because if you're the landlord and all of a sudden now you have an extra $1,000 a month payment to make toward an assessment, you're not going to have a choice, but that's going to reduce your return on investment. So then you're going to start saying, well, okay, I'll lower the price, let somebody else deal with this, which is great for us because we're going to have a lot more sales. I do think this is going to be a much stronger sales year for our industry, but it's going to take a lot of communication with our sellers to get everyone to understand that. Now, you look down here, I love these graphs because this graph here is the number of new listings taken each month. So in November of 23, there were 2,288 new listings that month. This is all condos in Dade County. And again, I didn't do one of these for the other counties, but we can easily do these. Well, I did do them, but just didn't put them in the graph here. 1,877 new listings from December 1877 to 2,900. But now this year we've gone to 3,400. So, this increase is huge compared to what it was back here. So I think that this is something that we need to watch too, that we now have in condos, especially, we have a lot of owners who are going, okay, it's time to sell. So we always have more listings in January, as we did back here. And every year you'll see more listings in January because people put off or postpone their listings until the holidays are finished and wrapped up, and then they start thinking about it. But we now have 12,000 units on the market, and a year ago we had 8,700. So, that inventory is 44% more than it was a year ago. All right. Now, months of supply here, we're at 18 months. And again, you go back here to March, we were at 8 months and 6 months and 6 months. Prices were going up here because the inventory was down. People didn't have a lot to choose from. But then when we get down here, when inventory starts going up, prices start coming down. These graphs are so easy if we'll just follow them. And of course, the strength that we can give to our sellers to understand these graphs is really what's valuable to them. They may not want to hear it, and I wouldn't want to hear it either, but of course, we all have investment properties, and yeah, it's not good news for some of us that are saying, okay, well, my unit's not going to be increasing like it was. But we're still seeing a median price here increasing from a year ago. But then you look now that in January that median price is $417, and at the end of November, December, January, it was $439. So we can see it right here: 445, 435, 417, and that will continue as long as this months of supply stays high. And so I know that sounds like kind of a downer to talk about that, but it's just reality. Most of our condo owners today still have a lot of value in their condos, but it's something that we cannot ignore. And these graphs are kind of telling us the story of what we need to be doing. So first place is we need to get the associations back on a steady footing and have their proper reserves. And I think that's going to happen. That is happening. but it'll be a jolt to a lot of investors that have not been watching what's going on with their building or their investment. All right. Anything else on this? Okay. This is something exciting. We have this information from New Estate Only. That's an organization that has pulled together all of our new construction in the county or in the state, and now they're doing it across the country. And so much of this information is in our MLS, or it's in our Miami Association of Realtors data. But we're going to now have an opportunity through our company with a special arrangement we have with NEO that they're going to let you brand all of these projects with your identification, even though there may be other companies, other listing agents, and everybody understands how all this is working. I mean, the developers just want to get the best value they can from all of us to help show their units. As you know, most of these buildings are paying a pretty high commission, 5 to 6% cooperating commission. But just watch for this. You'll be getting some emails on this, maybe even this week, if not this week, next week, showing how you will be able to customize this for your website, for your look, for your social media. A lot of good things that'll give you all this information just at just on your computer. And it's also going to be updated, which has been one of the challenges with printed materials with these new projects, because as prices change or inventories change, it's hard sometimes to get that information to our buyers. But in this way, they're maintaining all this data with the help of the developers and the listing companies that are handling the sales of new construction. So just watch for this. This is something coming. All right, something else, the Sunshine Kids, you guys have been so supportive of the Sunshine Kids, which is our major charity for the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Network. And we've been, I've forgotten how many decades now, like 3 decades, I think 30 years, that we've been supporting the Sunshine Kids. And you guys have been so supportive of this. I mean, I know some of you are donating to Sunshine Kids out of every closing you have. In Key Biscayne, our group there does a gala every year that the whole, village of Key Biscayne attends, and they're going to have a jewelry sale with, I don't know this company, but our team over in our Key Biscayne office do, and they know that they're going to be available next Wednesday, the 12th, from 11 to 3. So if you want to jot that down, take just a screenshot of it or a picture of it, to go to Key Biscayne. I'm sure you'll see some of our people there, and you can find some great Valentine gifts. Now, this next slide is a little tougher. And this is our last slide, but this is our company in Palisades. I think you probably have seen some of this in the news media. It's just shocking to me. I talked with my counterpart out there yesterday, and what they've been dealing with for the last 5 weeks. I mean, it's all started, not even 5 weeks, 1 month. January 7th is when these fires started. And the fires have now burned down 17,000 structures. This is homes and businesses. This was our office. This was one of our largest offices. We have 1,600 offices across the country. And this was one of the, probably in the top 10. And, incidentally, while I'm mentioning that, our Coral Gables office here is number 4 out of those 1,600 companies, or 1,600 offices that we have across the country. So, obviously both California and our Coral Gables office share, the volume, or share the fact that they rank very high in the volume of the 1,600 offices. But, we've lost one of them there. And not only did this office burn, but the manager of this office lost his home the same day. And we've had 31 of our agents in California lose their homes. And of course, as you've read, and we know what hurricanes are like, but we have a little time to prepare. But in these cases, most of them had no time to prepare. Lucky that no one was killed. But this is the aftermath of what they're dealing with. They have a foundation called the Charitable Foundation, which all the monies that go into the Charitable Foundation are going to be shared with our agents and staff members who have lost properties out there. So I know many of you have asked me, and This is a simple way of just going to this website here. Again, you can take a picture of this. We'll send out this information as well. But they've already raised about $128,000, she told me yesterday. But it's not only losing buildings, but we kind of forget about the fact that you lose the whole structure of your community. She said like a fourth of the school teachers have lost their homes, and four of the schools have burned in these areas. So how do you even put that all back together? So we know about natural disasters, and so we appreciate the help that people give us when we have our challenges. But I don't think anybody's ever seen anything quite like this. All right, so if you have questions about that, you can certainly call me later. But I wanted y'all to know about that as well. So the power, presence, and prestige of Berkshire Hathaway EWM. We are very fortunate that we have all of you, because without you we wouldn't have a company, and many of you have hit the ground running this year with new listings. Listings are the name of this business. If we have the listings, the buyers will find us. And with the new changes that we've had with buyer representation, that's going to tie us tighter together with our buyers. Many of our sellers now are calling listing agents first to say, we understand the new rules, but we want to work with you because you have a listing. So having listings is going to be probably more important today than it's ever been. And of course, it's like the new listing. A listing is like having a silent salesperson to be helping you, because when you have the listing, that information is being shared throughout the country. Not only with our websites, but with Zillow and others. So Sherry, we have any other thoughts or questions over there?
Actually, Ron, you kind of addressed them all. I think you did such a good job unpacking each item. There weren't as many questions as there sometimes are. I want to thank you because I know the amount of prep time that takes on your end. I could see that there were a lot more communities included this time, as you shared. I know Lillian out of our marketing team, Vanessa, Lisa, all had a hand in helping. And I know Diane, you were a great help too on the technical side. As we shared, we did record this, so we just have to kind of package it and we'll send that back out. We'll also be sending all of these slides. I've also asked marketing to pull out some of those standalones that we've done before with the interest rates. And you had some new ones in there that I was making notes of that looked really great for our people to be able to use in their presentations. So thank you, Ron. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciated you taking the time.
Yeah,
So
it's gonna this year, as you saw in these graphs, this is going to be the best year that we've had in 3 years. So just get ready. I mean, it's past time to get ready. We're hopefully, hopefully everybody is running full speed now. We're getting a lot of great new listings, at all price ranges. So I just encourage you to reach out to us if you have questions about how to get your business pumped and going here for the remaining part of the year. But it's still early in the year, still plenty of time to take advantage of all this. But these graphs tell the story that our buyers and sellers need to hear. So these graphs will open up a lot of new discussion with your buyers and sellers. So thank you again. Thank you. I'm so proud of each one of you. As I hear comments from around the community everywhere I go. I was with somebody this morning at an event where our mayor was speaking, and somebody came up to me and said, "You know what? I bought my house from you in Pinecrest like 30 years ago." She told me the name of the person, and I won't say that right here, but I get those kind of comments every time I'm out in the community of how happy they were and how much help that you continue to give them. So, each one of you represent our company. When people say, "What do you think of that company?" They normally are not thinking of the company. They're thinking about one person in our company, and all the time, that one person is you. So thanks so much. Have a good week.
thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.